They came with the rain, a relentless, pounding monsoon that refused to stop. In the Himalayan state of Uttarakhand, India, rivers swelled beyond their banks, slopes gave way, and entire villages were swallowed by mud and water. By mid-September 2025, floods and landslides had left a trail of destruction, roads torn apart, bridges washed away, homes buried, and lives lost. And in one haunting video, a leopard, a symbol of the wild Himalayas, was swept away by the torrent. A chilling reminder that in disasters of this scale, no one is spared, not humans, not animals, not even the land itself. This is the story of the Uttarakhand floods of 2025, a disaster born from nature's fury, made worse by human choices. And at the end, we'll ask a sobering question. What if something like this struck closer to home, in New York or Manila? Uttarakhand is known as the Land of Gods. Nestled high in the majestic Himalayas, it is a place of sacred rivers, ancient temples, and breathtaking natural beauty that draws pilgrims and travelers alike. But this paradise is fragile. The mountains here are young and unstable, their slopes prone to erosion and sudden landslides. Heavy rains can quickly turn peaceful valleys into deadly torrents, and the people of Uttarakhand, more than 11 million souls, live precariously between faith and danger. Towns sprawl along riverbanks, while centuries-old pilgrimage routes snake through steep, treacherous passes. Hydropower dams crowd the rivers, and winding roads carved into cliffs bring millions of tourists every year. It is a land of immense opportunity, but it is also a land waiting, quietly, for disaster to strike. In September 2025, the monsoon unleashed devastation across the region. Meteorologists recorded rainfall far above seasonal averages. Entire valleys transformed into raging rivers. The Ganga and Yamuna, sacred lifelines of India, swelled with terrifying force, flooding everything in their path. But the rain itself was only part of the disaster. Rampant deforestation had stripped the slopes bare, and uncontrolled construction had weakened natural barriers. Dams and roads had dramatically altered the natural flow of water. When the torrents came, the land could no longer absorb the deluge. It slid, collapsed, and carried with it homes, buses, temples, and human lives. What should have been a season of heavy rain turned into a chain reaction, a perfect storm of water, rock, and years of human neglect converging with nature's fury. Entire districts were cut off. Roads leading into the mountains collapsed into raging rivers, leaving towns isolated and helpless. In some places, walls of water smashed through markets, washing away stalls, cars, and belongings as if they were mere toys. In others, landslides buried entire neighborhoods under meters of rock and mud, leaving destruction in their wake. Rescue workers struggled to reach survivors. Helicopters hovered over rooftops, plucking terrified residents to safety. Army units worked tirelessly, clearing massive boulders that blocked highways and pathways. Families clung to each other in fear, waiting for help that sometimes never came in time. The death toll rose day by day. Dozens were killed in mere minutes. Hundreds remained missing, and tens of thousands were displaced, wandering through ruined villages and temporary shelters. And as videos spread online, some images became haunting symbols of the disaster. The sight of a leopard swept away by the raging floodwaters captured global attention. It was a stark reminder that the catastrophe spared no one, humans, animals, or the very landscape itself. Behind every statistic is a story. A mother desperately searching through mud and rubble for her children. A farmer standing helpless as his fields vanish beneath the water. Children in makeshift shelters, asking when they will see their schools again. For the people of Uttarakhand, the floods were not just a natural disaster. They were an erasure of years of hard work, of homes, livelihoods, and futures built with care. Economic damage ran into the billions. Crops were destroyed, roads severed, trade halted, and entire communities were cut off from the outside world. And then came the disease. Stagnant pools left behind by the floodwaters became breeding grounds for cholera, dengue, and other deadly illnesses. Relief camps filled with displaced families struggled to cope with the overwhelming demand. The Himalayas, once worshipped as divine and eternal, had turned into an unrelenting destroyer, indifferent to human suffering. This was not the first time that the Himalayas and surrounding regions faced devastating floods. In 2013, flash floods struck Kedarnath, another sacred Himalayan town. Torrents of water and debris swept through the valley with astonishing speed and force, claiming thousands of lives and leaving behind a trail of destruction that haunted the region for years. Entire villages were buried, roads vanished, and rescue efforts struggled against the overwhelming natural fury. Then, in 2018, floods hit Kerala with equal ferocity. Hundreds of people lost their lives, while millions more were displaced from their homes. Communities were cut off, crops destroyed, and the state faced a massive humanitarian crisis. Again and again, India's monsoon demonstrates its dual nature: a provider of life and sustenance on one hand, and a harbinger of destruction on the other. The 2025 floods, however, arrived with a warning louder than ever. Climate change is making these extreme events more frequent, more violent, and far less predictable. Humanity can no longer ignore the lessons hidden in these waters. Could Uttarakhand face such catastrophic floods again? The answer is yes, and possibly sooner than we think. The combination of fragile mountains, heavy rainfall, and growing human activity makes the region inherently vulnerable. Scientists warn that rising global temperatures are fueling heavier monsoons, increasing the likelihood of landslides and making floods far deadlier than before. The patterns we once considered rare may soon become the new normal, and the threat is not limited to India alone. Across the world, regions with unstable slopes, rapid urbanization, deforested hills, and fragile infrastructure are all at risk of similar disasters. Cities and towns built without proper planning or too close to nature's edge may find themselves facing sudden devastation. The Himalayan tragedy is more than a local disaster. It is a warning, a glimpse of what could strike anywhere, showing how human choices, climate change, and nature's fury can combine with devastating effect. Now imagine this not in the Himalayas, but in two urban giants with populations in the millions, New York and Manila. In New York City, one of the most densely populated urban centers on Earth, rainfall on the scale of Uttarakhand would overwhelm the city in hours. The subway system, a maze beneath the streets, would become a death trap, flooding within minutes. Power stations along the East River would short out. Skyscrapers, though built strong, would find their foundations tested as floodwaters crept into basements. Emergency services, already stretched thin, would have no way to rescue everyone. Millions could be stranded in high-rises, without power, without clean water, waiting for help that might not come. And the economic shock would ripple far beyond New York. Wall Street paralyzed, trade halted, digital markets shaken as the global financial capital went dark. A disaster in one city, but felt across the entire world. Now look to Manila. The Philippine capital knows floods all too well, but imagine a storm bringing rains equal to those in Uttarakhand. Narrow streets would become rivers. Shanty towns along creeks and rivers would vanish in an instant. Landslides in Quezon City, Antipolo, and Baguio would bury entire families. Hospitals, already overcrowded, would collapse under the surge of victims. Relief would be slow. Millions could be displaced in a single night. And with Manila being the heart of the Philippine economy, the nation would be paralyzed. The human suffering would be immense. Both New York and Manila, though separated by half a world, share the same vulnerability: dense populations, fragile infrastructure, and the illusion that cities can control nature. The lesson of Uttarakhand is clear. When the rain comes harder than ever before, no city is truly prepared. The Uttarakhand floods of 2025 remind us of a truth we would rather ignore. Civilization is only ever a few hours away from being torn apart by nature. We can build dams, roads, and cities, but when the mountains collapse and the rivers rise, our strength is tested. The people of Uttarakhand will rebuild. They always do, but their tragedy is a warning, one that reaches far beyond India, because the question is not if it happens again. The question is where. This was Doomsday Broadcast. Don't forget to like and subscribe for deep dives into real disasters and frightening what-ifs.